And this is POPI, which stands for PNS Optimized Pulses for EPI, which is another response to this fantastic new upgrade/downgrade that we're dealing with. Namely, we need to optimize our sequences for PNS. With the upgrade, there's a new PNS coming, new PNS model rolled out that is supposed to be more flexible as it doesn't include cardiac stimulation. However, it turned out to be more restrictive when you do axial EPI. And you can optimize PNS in many ways. You can optimize your model, like here Bastien is doing with kind of deep learning models as well, and more kind of informed physiological models. You can also try to optimize PNS based on different gradient wires, like Matthias Davids has done with Larry Wald. However, here I'm using a different approach, namely I'm optimizing my sequence. Specifically, I'm using the SAFE model that is called, sorry if I find it. SAFE model stands for Stimulation Approximation by Filtering and Evaluation. This is a model rolled out from Siemens. There's also a GitHub version on it, so you can pump your sequence through that model. And we are simulating a number of different software platforms. For example, the new gradient amplifiers with 250 slew rate, the previous gradient amplifiers with 200 slew rates, and actually we are also simulating the new gradient amplifiers with the new software, the XA60 SP04 that's going to be rolled out end of the year. However, we didn't get clearance to put this in the abstract from Siemens, so I'm not mentioning it here. They did not care about it in the table though, so I still have it in here. I'm showing the simulation results that giving you the time of how long we can have the maximum slew rate of a gradient before we hit the peripheral nerve stimulation. So with the current model that we have on our TeraX or any TeraX installed, you can have the maximum slew rate for 250 microseconds before you hit the PNS threshold. And as you're at the threshold, or 99% of the threshold, you can continue to slew your gradients at 135 millitesla per meter per second. After the upgrade, you will be able to slew a bit longer, and you also have a higher steady state for EPI in the axial direction. I'm explaining you this all because it matters for EPI a lot. I'm sharing my screen, right? So in EPI, we have these trapezoidal gradient pulses, and the peripheral nerve stimulation comes from dB/dt. So basically, it comes from the fact when you have a change in the magnetic field at a given location. So off isonance center, for example, in the shoulders or the cheeks, the field changes a lot as you change your gradient. And when you have these flat tops, the PNS kind of decays because the field at this location is then constant. It's only that at the end of these slew rates, we are exceeding the peripheral nerve stimulation. And the point of this figure is to show that PNS is highly variable across time, and we have these PNS spikes. So maybe 5% of my entire time series, I have the PNS above the threshold. So I cannot run this protocol because the SAFE model on the scanner will not allow me. So the only options I have as a scanner operator is to reduce my slew rate, aka go to the gradient mode to normal, not fast, or I reduce my amplitude, basically stopping to slew and then having this decay a bit earlier. Both of those options are very costly. Reducing the amplitude, aka reducing the bandwidth, and basically has an effect on the entire sequence. So I need to slow down 100% of my sequence because I have 5% of this exceeding spikes. So the idea in POPI would be to only slow down the sequence at the time points when we are really limited by it, which I want to show here. For a conventional gradient before the upgrade, for example, you would have a 200 millitesla per meter slew rate. This is actually an error. I need to write this down. This should be Tesla per meter per second. You exceed the stimulation threshold, so you cannot run this protocol. Now, on the new system, we have a higher slew rate available, so we can actually be faster. We would hit the threshold earlier, but then for the second half of the slope here, we are actually going a bit easier. So we can achieve the same area under the curve, the same resolution, by just being always kind of just below the stimulation threshold over here. So we can take advantage of the new slew rate that we have available. This is relatively easy to implement also, and because in the Siemens reconstruction, the regrading during ramp sampling is done differently anyway for the ramp up and the ramp down. But now we have these asymmetric gradients, and it matters to make sure that the regrading actually works and that we don't have additional ghosting, which you can see over here for the trapezoidal EPI. I'm looking at my ghosting again by looking at the difference between the different repolarities, and you can see that for the trapezoidal EPI, we have very little ghosting. We have a bit of off-resonance ghosting, which is pretty much the same for the POPI methods, while having the same echo spacing now being less limited by peripheral nerve stimulation. This is an 0.8 millimeter protocol, and I'm showing this for 2 participants, so the ghosting is not really affected by POPI. Now, maybe I show this in the slides because then I can zoom in. Now that we have this implemented, we want to see how much we can push the limits of our sequence, and I want to push this by going to as highest resolution as I can. Specifically here, I'm looking into 0.3 millimeter isotropic. So with this kind of resolution, even when you have 18 slices, it's only a tiny part of the brain. So I'm using the participant-specific auto-align feature, which then aligns my different slices relatively consistently. There's residual kind of nonlinear motion happening. And if you look at the run average stability across different TRs, you do see that we are not limited by thermal noise, we are limited by artifact noise, like these shot-to-shot segmentation artifacts, which is a good thing, right? We don't want to be limited by thermal noise. The individual TR looks like that. So there is a lot of thermal noise, but after run averaging, that's not the limiting thing. And you do see indications of the mesoscale features, like the different layers over here, or maybe indications of the vessels coming in. Our TSNR is just barely double digit, which is my threshold for checkerboard experiments, so you can detect activations with these fine scale features of positive, negative activities, and also these individual stripes over there. We run this with LN2 Frisco and also unplugging the third of the shim. Otherwise, we might have a tiny little bit of artifacts to some degree. Now, with POPI, we can push the gradient so much that we are limited by other parts of the gradient of the scanner system. For example, we are always running at minimum dwell time. Our ADCs basically cannot keep up to collect data as fast as we do. And also the cooling cannot really keep up. So after 10 minutes already, we are going into a temperature regime where the gradients start to wear down, which is a problem. So after every run, we need to wait a bit until the gradient is cooled again. So now that we know that the protocol works and that POPI is implemented correctly, we can try to see how stable this is. Where I want to just show you that the 0.3 millimeter isotropic protocol seems to give kind of robust results across different participants. So we always get activity to some degree in the visual cortex, which then can be further analyzed by acquisition and analysis strategies from Alessandra, as you heard. So here I will mostly focus on the DC activity, and there are fine scale information in there, but I will not interpret those. And let me jump to my, this is the wrong one, to my conclusion. Maybe I forgot something. I need to go off this one. Yeah, I think that's basically it. So we can run POPI, and I need to, we can push this for high temporal and spatial resolution, basically. Yeah, that's that. Are there any questions? I know we are already behind time. No questions? I see. No. Okay, no questions. Then we can stop right on time. And I thank you all for joining. So in 2 weeks, we will have Allard presenting. He will present high resolution MRI and high resolution microscopy, which might be interesting. All right. Thank you, everybody.